Hello and welcome to Workers Comp Unwrapped, the podcast that simplifies workers' compensation for physicians. So, let's get started. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 26 of Workers Comp Unwrapped. I'm your host, Anique.
And I'm Angela. It's great to be here.
And today we are talking about holiday staffing gaps, avoiding lien and filing, and RFA delays.
A topic that is way more critical than it sounds.
It really is.
Yeah.
Every year, there's this collective slowdown in December. Offices run on skeleton crews. Everyone's taking time off, and the pace just drops.
This feels natural, right?
Totally. But for anyone in workers' comp compliance, that holiday slowdown, it's not a break. It's probably one of the most financially dangerous times of the year.
That's the perfect way to put it. It creates this huge tension because while your staff is out, the statutory and regulatory deadlines that govern everything.
They don't take a vacation.
They do not pause. They are relentlessly ticking away, 365 days a year.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've dug through the source material, and it describes this recurring perfect storm that hits every December.
And it leads to lost revenue, exposed legal rights. Huge problem.
Yeah, we're not talking about small things here. We're talking untracked RFAs that delay treatment, billing screw-ups, and the worst one, expired lien rights. That's permanently lost money.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, to cut through that holiday noise and pinpoint these high-risk failures, specifically with RFAs and lien rights, and more importantly, give you some concrete strategies to protect your timelines and, of course, protect your revenue.
All right, let's jump right into that danger zone. Why, operationally, does December become this compliance black hole every single year?
Well, it really is a perfect storm, and it's built on three key ingredients. Number one is the obvious one, office short staffing, overlapping PTO.
You keep people walk out the door for 2 weeks.
Exactly. And number two, the payers, the claims administrators, their responses slow down too because their people are also out.
Okay, so those 2 points make perfect sense. It's a system-wide slowdown. But you said there was a third ingredient, a more insidious one?
This is the one. It's the internal attitude. It's this general but completely false assumption that nothing really moves until the first week of January anyway.
That's the trap.
That is the trap. It turns into this operational complacency. People think, I'll just leave this on the desk. No one's going to look at it till the new year.
So that assumption is where it all goes wrong, because the legal clock is still ticking. But wait, if the claims administrator's office is also slowed down, doesn't some kind of common sense apply? Are providers really held to the fire when the other side is also checking out?
That's what's so fascinating, and what the sources just hammer home. The law doesn't care about your office schedule.
Or the payer's schedule.
Not at all. The deadlines for UR, for billing disputes, for lien filing, they're statutory, they're written into the regulations, and they just keep running.
That makes the stakes incredibly clear. And the severity of missing one of these deadlines, it's huge.
It is. The damage you do in December is usually not fixable. A mistake in April, you can probably correct it. But a mistake that lets a statute of limitations run out in December, that is a permanent financial loss.
Wow. Okay, that highlights the urgency. Let's transition to the first major breakdown point then. Requests for authorization, RFAs.
Yes. This is a classic operational pitfall. And it all centers on this one little detail that providers miss all the time.
Which is?
The UR timeline, that clock. It only starts when the claims administrator receives a completed RFA.
Oh, wow. Okay, that word completed is doing a lot of work there.
Yeah.
So if my team sends 99% of the paperwork, they forgot, the initial treatment notes, the clock hasn't even started on their end.
Not at all. Precisely. The clock stalls. Or worse, they send it back, and now you have to restart the whole thing once you find the missing piece. And if you're short-staffed, you've just lost weeks on getting treatment approved.
And we should remind everyone what those specific timelines are.
Absolutely. For most standard requests, a UR decision is due within 5 business days of getting that completed RFA.
5 business days? That's a tight window even on a normal week.
It is. And it just flies by when your main person is out and no one's following up.
So here's the failure pattern we see, right?
Yeah.
The RFA gets sent, maybe it's rushed, late in the month. Nobody confirms it was received as complete.
Right. And that 5-day deadline just passes silently.
And then everyone comes back in January, looks at the file, and realizes the auth never happened.
And now the patient has waited a month for care and you have to start all over again. It's a mess.
So what are the immediate practical fixes? What can you do in November to prepare for December?
The fixes are all about procedure. First, just submit your RFAs earlier than you normally would. Give yourself a buffer.
Okay, simple enough. What's next?
Second, and this is critical, assign a primary and a backup person for tracking these timelines. And they have to coordinate their time off.
So somebody is always watching the clock.
Always. And third, you have to mandate rigorous documentation. Record the submission date, get proof of delivery, and log every single follow-up attempt, especially confirming it was received as complete.
Don't just assume it worked because you hit send.
Never assume.
That documentation is the foundation. Okay, speaking of foundations, let's talk about the single most expensive consequence of these gaps. This is where the real money is lost.
Revenue and lien rates.
Exactly.
Look, this is where December lapses become existential threats to a practice. It's all connected. When bills just sit there unsubmitted, the whole downstream timeline shifts.
You delay the EOR, the explanation of review.
Exactly. And by delaying that, you shrink the window. You have to dispute the payment. And it all builds toward that final, absolute, non-negotiable deadline.
The big one.
Yes. In many jurisdictions, providers are working with an absolute 18-month window from the date of service to preserve their lien rights.
18 months, and if you miss that,
it's over. The claim is completely foreclosed. You lose all legal recourse for that payment, no matter how justified the treatment was.
that is a staggering loss. Can you give us an example of how that 18-month clock gets lost in the holiday scramble?
Sure. Imagine you did a service in July of last year. Your 18-month deadline falls in January, right after the new year.
Okay.
Because your billing staff was out, those July bills didn't go out until the first week of January. If that bill gets denied, you might only have a few weeks to fix it before that 18-month marker for the original service just flies by.
And that July claim is just gone. Permanent bad debt.
Permanent bad debt.
Wow.
Right.
So what are the specific billing mistakes that lead to this?
Well, number one is just letting bills pile up until January. Number two is failing to track those EOR receipt dates, which, kills your dispute window.
And the third?
The third is just false hope. The assumption that the landed deadline somehow paused because the claims administrator was also slow. I have to say it again. That 18-month clock keeps running no matter what.
So if we need to be aggressive to protect that revenue, what does a protected December actually look like?
You have to override the natural instinct to slow down. First, set an earlier December billing cutoff date, maybe the 20th, and mandate that everything is submitted.
Get it out the door.
Get it out. Second, commit to batch submitting bills weekly, even if it's a small batch. Don't let them pile up.
And the most critical step,
Mandatory calendaring of all lien filing deadlines before anyone goes on vacation. Find every 18-month marker that's coming up in the next 6 months and put it on a shared calendar for review first thing in January.
okay, let's flip this around for a second. Let's talk about the other side of the deal. Payer obligations. They don't get a holiday pass either, do they?
No, they don't. And it's vital for providers to know these timelines because they dictate when you can escalate a bill to a dispute or an appeal.
So let's recap those. For a complete uncontested bill, what's the payment window?
Generally, payment is due within 45 days of receipt. Sometimes 60 days for government employers, but 45 is the main one.
And what if the bill is contested? Or they say it's incomplete?
Then the payer has to respond with that EOR, that explanation, within 30 days. And knowing that 30-day clock is so important because that's the starting gun for your appeals process.
So the hidden risk here is that even if you can submit bills later, by letting them pile up, you're just sabotaging your own timelines for everything that comes after.
It's a domino effect of self-sabotage. You wait till January, you might not get EORs until March. And now you've compressed your own response time and you're rushing and making errors.
Which brings us to documentation, the foundation of everything. Just because patient volume is lower doesn't mean the requirements are relaxed.
Not at all. And the consequences of sloppy notes in December they're painful. They delay billing, they delay RFAs, and they create massive audit exposure for when things ramp up again in the new year.
So what are the simple, effective fixes for documentation over the holidays?
It's all about consistency. First, mandate closing charts weekly. Do not let documentation sit for 2 weeks. Just don't. Second, use templates and checklists, especially if you have temporary staff. It keeps everything consistent. And third, just take a little time to audit a small sample of records before the year ends.
A quick spot check.
A quick spot check can catch a systemic error, like a missing signature, before it ruins a whole month of claims.
So if we sum all this up, the main finding is that Well, January is just too late to fix what went wrong in December?
It is way too late. Your only defense is planning, having backups, and doing rigorous calendar checks before the holiday break starts.
Protect your financial timelines, protect your revenue, and protect your legal rights. The quiet office in December shouldn't lead to complacency.
Right. It should be a time for focused, meticulous work. Use that quiet to double-check those 18-month deadlines, not to let an RFA sit on a desk.
This has been incredibly helpful. For everyone listening, we want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to consider. It really summarizes the highest priority risk, given the inherent staffing challenges in December. Which single metric tracking RFA completeness to ensure that 5-day UR compliance, or tracking that 18-month Lien deadline to ensure payment enforcement, which one is the absolute most critical one to prioritize to prevent long-term financial loss?
That's a great question.
Think about which mistake is truly permanent and plan your December defenses accordingly. Thanks for listening to Workers Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe and share with fellow doctors. Stay informed and keep making a difference in your patient's care.